Is it really worth taking time in your workday to do spiritual practice when there's so much to do? What is the role of spiritual practice in your work? This is Mark Silver with Heart of Business, and I've come to understand that spiritual practice is really critical during work hours while you're working on your business. You see, a lot of times those of us who are doing spirituality in business or transformational work of a variety of kinds, we end up doing a lot of workshop style exercises. And don't get me wrong, we have a lot of those here at Heart of Business as well, and they can be really, really helpful. They bring a conscious intent and often an internal and external process to working through something and gaining a breakthrough or an insight or just getting something done. Even healing. Healing can happen inside of that kind of an exercise. But there are real limitations to that kind of work. And the limitations are that it requires conscious intention. And that conscious intention means that your ego and yourself are all wrapped up in it. Even when you think they're not, if you're bringing conscious intention and attempting to do something, there are going to be boundaries around what happens that are defined by what you know and what you're thinking and what you're intending by the exercise. Spiritual practice is very different. The way that I understand spiritual practice is that it's kind of like boarding a vessel, boarding a ship, or getting on a horse that someone else is leading, someone else is piloting. There's a bit of surrender. One of the things that we say is that we spend the effort doing the spiritual practice, and the spiritual practice, the divine, does the work. And so if we're wanting cleaning in our hearts, if we're wanting healing, if we're wanting to see things in a new way, if we want movement, I find that taking refuge, embracing spiritual practice opens doors in a very different way. For one, it might mean that what I've thought I've wanted is not what's needed. Often we think we know what we need in our business. We think we know what the business needs. We think we know what we need to go after or what we need to do or create. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're very wrong. And spiritual practice opens us up to the mystery in a way that allows something very different to come in. Instead of having I'm going to be doing this exercise or even the spiritual practice to create movement in the business, I'm using the spiritual practice to let my heart be in relationship with the oneness and in relationship with the heart of my business and seeing what's there. Maybe the business isn't needing movement right now. Maybe that's why there is none. Maybe we're needing to build a firmer foundation where we're standing. Maybe there needs to be some kind of surrender or opening in the heart or some kind of insight or healing. Maybe there's something right in front of us and that if we moved on too quickly, we'd miss it. It can also propel movement. Maybe we've been standing still too long or we've been going in the wrong direction, and the spiritual practice gently, or sometimes not so gently, shows us something else, points us in a different direction. I'm a big believer in spiritual practice during the workday, while you're working on your business. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It could be 10 or 15 minutes. I habitually, in our learning community, lead a chanting practice, a Sufi chanting practice that's meant to clean the 4 layers of the heart. And the chanting does the cleansing. And then I often get some kind of an insight, or my heart just feels more at ease, or who knows what comes up. It's not predictable. So this is my invitation to you, my urging to you, to bring spiritual practice, if you don't already, into your workday. And if you're already doing it, be doing it a little bit more. I hope this has been helpful. I'm really curious. Do you do spiritual practice during your workday? What would you do if you did? And if you took on the challenge of doing it once a day during your work hours, 3 days in a row, what do you notice at the end? All right. This has been Mark Silver with Heart of Business. Just blessings to you and your business. All right, a quick addendum to that last video about spiritual practice that I'm tacking on here is that I realized that I talked about it in a way that is completely within the framework or paradigm of wanting your business to do better, which is totally fine and beautiful. It's a beautiful intention. But I think it's also important to acknowledge that we are not wanting to continue down this path of predatory late-stage capitalism, that when we do work in the world, if we're self-employed, if we have a business, we don't want to further the harms of the world. And one of the other things that spiritual practice does is it brings us back into alignment with love, with the oneness, with Allah, with the divine, however you name the divine. And that can undermine unconscious impulses that create harm, things that we were taught unconsciously, models that we've taken on because the work world, the business world is so toxic and so dysfunctional because of the ravages of capitalism. And part of the medicine, part of the antidote is to bring in a conscious engagement with love and the divine that can help to wash some of that away. All right, I didn't want to leave that out. Blessings.